And today I'm with Sabrina Esufally, the very capable, very dynamic, and hugely eloquent managing director of the Hemas Consumer Brands, which is a part of Hemas Holdings, one of Sri Lanka's largest companies listed on the Colombo Stock Exchange. It has more than 4,000 shareholders, more than 5,000 employees, and we are here in Colombo in Sabrina's office. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
It's
so nice to have you.
It's so wonderful to meet you. And I don't know, dear viewers, if you can see the products at the back, lots of products, lots of personal care products. But Sabrina, tell me, you're a managing director of the Hemas Consumer Brand, but what is it exactly that you do and what kind of brands do you do?
Okay, so just to give you a bit of context,
Yeah.
I'm the fourth generation of the family that started Hemas. My great-grandfather was actually from Kutch.
Lovely.
And he came over to Sri Lanka, started a business in the pharmaceutical distribution space in 1948.
Oh, wow. So you're as old as Sri Lanka. Yes?
Exactly, yeah.
75 years old?
Yeah, that's right. Good memory.
Okay.
And so 75 years later, we have, fairly diverse businesses, mostly in healthcare and consumer.
Okay.
And so the consumer piece is the business that I run. We have about 25% share in the home and personal care market
Of
in
Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka. We also have a business in Bangladesh where we're the number 2 hair oil with our brand Kumarika. And so mainly, what I do every day is I push my teams to deliver market-beating growth through innovation and products that we feel truly add value to consumer needs.
But when you say innovation, what do you mean? I mean, how much can you change a soap or a shampoo or, sort of sanitary pads? What can you do with it?
So I think 2 things. One is if you feel that there are consumer needs that are emerging that the market hasn't solved for. For example, behind me you'll see we launched a skincare brand called Vivya, made from Sri Lankan heirloom rice, and really the reason.
What is heirloom rice? I know you've talked about this before, but what is it?
So heirloom rice is rice that is endemic to Sri Lanka. So Sri Lanka used to be known as the granary of the world, and not necessarily
the rice granary.
Granary of the world.
Okay.
Because of the quality of rice that we produce, not necessarily the quantity. And so there are endemic grains of rice in Sri Lanka that have more potency than the regular basmati rice that we eat. And so we actually work with formulators from Japan and Ayurvedic doctors to extract ferulic acid, which is really the active component in the rice, to make a skincare brand. And why we did it is because we realized that when we spoke to sort of 28-something-year-old women, they were no longer saying things like, oh, I want my skin to be fair. They were saying, look, I want to have the skin I had when I was younger. All of this life stress has really taken out, the youthfulness, the brightness in my skin, and I want it back.
So fair and lovely. So you mean like Indian women who everybody wants to be fair. Sri Lankan women also want to be fair?
I think there's a portion of women that want to be fair, but that there's a portion of women that
are comfortable with their color,
with their own skin, and they don't necessarily want a fairer complexion. They just want younger looking skin. And so this is something we decided the market wasn't solving for, but we wanted to solve for it because we felt that it was a need that was important to sort of make an accessible product for. And so that's what we do. We kind of find a need, we make a great product, but we also make sure that it's widely accessible. So it's at a price point that we feel, can be afforded by a mass.
That was my next question, because a lot of this sort of consumer products, especially in the skincare business, they're very expensive, aren't they?
And they're not accessible, right? So at Hemas we believe that good things shouldn't be accessible to a few. So we try to broad base our solutions as far as possible. And so this is something that I think energizes me personally, but I think it also energizes our employees because they actively get to solve for needs that they feel are widely felt.
Right. So how much would a Vivya bottle or a tube of say 100 grams, how much would it cost?
I'm trying to convert it very quickly into
tell
Indian
me,
rupees, but
it's
it's about 350 Sri Lankan rupees, which is less than 100.
1/3.
Yeah,
So like 100 Sri Lankan rupees, and that would be like a 100-gram tube or something.
Yes.
That's very, very reasonable.
Yes.
Yeah. So obviously, and you're saying that it's good for your skin in the sense it's
yeah.
not like Fair and Lovely, which burns your skin really.
No.
You know?
So for us, we actually, we spent a lot of time co-creating this product with consumers. So we tested it on like 500 consumers before we took it to market. But we also got it independently vetted by labs, right? So we know for a fact that it's safe on sensitive skin, and we know for a fact that it gives you results in 14 days. And so this is what we liked. I mean, so our R&D team is very good at extracting natural ingredients and formulating it into a product that works. So we don't believe you need to make a trade-off between what is safe and what is effective.
Now, why is Hemas, everybody talks about Hemas as if it's an exceptional sort of a brand, and I know that you've also been voted in 2020, you were awarded in 2020 as being Asia's most responsible company. Now, these are words that obviously mean a lot to you, but what does it do in a market which is just emerging from the pandemic?
I think our secret sauce, if I look at our history, is our ability to build trust amongst highly discerning consumers. So, for example, we have a number one position in baby care. We have 30% share in oral care. So I think that doesn't come easy. That comes with consumers trusting you enough to use your products on the people they love most, right? Which
on
is
their babies.
On their babies.
Yeah.
They trust you enough to actually ingest you
to put something in your mouth.
Yeah. And if you look across, the conglomerate outside the business that I run, we are trusted in the pharmaceuticals that we produce. We are trusted in the healthcare that we deliver. So I think across the group, this is something that we place a lot of value on, and we know that trust is incredibly fragile because it also can be easily broken. And so we place a lot of emphasis not just in the quality of our products, in how we treat our employees, because we believe that trust is sacred, so someone has to create it, in our governance. So I think it's a whole host of things that we've done consistently over the years that has helped us kind of build this capability. And I think we were able to demonstrate that during the pandemic as well, where we didn't lay off any of our workers.
So 5,000 workers you kept?
We kept.
On?
We kept.
Okay. Even though there must have been large periods of lockdown and people didn't really work.
Yeah, we kept. And we kept them because we believe that that's kind of, we believe that the business would emerge stronger out of the pandemic. We unlocked an incredible amount of motivation, an incredible amount of energy through the business during that time because of that decision.
In what way?
In the sense that, ultimately, if our employees don't feel motivated to create truly customized solutions for consumer needs, or if our employees don't feel motivated enough to bring their best selves to work, and deliver outstanding health outcomes, there's very little value the business can create. So I think because employees felt safe in their jobs, they were also able to bring their creative energies to work, bring a service side, bring a better service side to work. And I think even during the worst of the pandemic, where our healthcare workers were incredibly stressed out, I think our nurses really got engaged because they felt that they were able to add value in a time where everyone was scared, everyone was confused, and everyone felt that they were playing a role that had a much bigger impact than their day-to-day job. So I think
you have a healthcare company too.
Yes.
Are these hospitals, or are they sort of products, or what is it?
So we have hospitals, we have pharmaceutical distribution. We also manufacture our own pharmaceuticals. So we have an entire healthcare cluster.
So what kind of pharma? Meaning sort of Western, like allopathic medicine?
Yeah, allopathic medicine. So we distribute on behalf of big pharmaceutical companies like Pfizer, AstraZeneca, and so on. So we have about 35% of the market share in Sri Lanka of distributed pharmaceuticals. 5 years ago, we also acquired a company that does manufactured pharmaceuticals. So we've invested quite a bit of money, time, and resources into kind of a state-of-the-art manufacturing facility where we plan to manufacture our own branded pharmaceuticals. And there we see an opportunity as sort of the middle class emerges. We see an opportunity for branded generics, where you have generics that are of really good quality, but that are accessible broadly.
But Sabrina, the Sri Lankan economy is not doing, it's not going through, well, okay, let me say this again. The Sri Lankan economy, while last year was a really bad time, do you feel that it's getting better, that you're emerging out of the worst? And, you're talking about manufacturing of pharma goods, but do you think that there is an economy that there will be people to buy this kind of stuff?
So I think it's certainly feeling better than it was last year. I think part of the risk of operating a business in an emerging market is that the business has to get accustomed to crises, and also having the comfort that what goes down must come up. and we've seen this sort of through the cycles that the business has endured over the last 75 years. However,
so you've learned from your dad, clearly, haven't you? Because
we're still standing, and we've seen a ton of crises.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
when you're in a business that's built to last, you kind of try to think 10 years ahead, 20 years ahead, and not get phased by a bad year.
Mm-hmm.
So on one hand, we feel confident in the resilience of the business at home, but on the other hand, we also feel that we have things to take outside Sri Lanka, and so really this crisis has been a moment where the company came together and decided, look, we were going to focus a ton of resources, effort, and know-how into navigating markets outside Sri Lanka. And I think, we use change as an opportunity to get better, to get stronger. And I think this is the one thing that I think emerged out of this crisis that will definitely make the business stronger 10 years from now.
But stronger meaning, like you said, get out of Sri Lanka, get into other countries in South Asia. You already have some stuff that's outside.
Yeah.
Or are you looking at Europe, which is, what most people do, including in India? If people are looking at the US and Europe, those are obviously large markets and there's much more money there. So what are your goals?
So for us, we want to really expand regionally because we feel that that the products that we make, the cultural similarities in terms of the affinity to them is something that travels well within the region. So for us, it'll be about doubling down in Bangladesh. We feel very optimistic about the market, and we have a good product market fit. So that's a market that we're really keen to expand in. We're exploring other markets in the region like Nepal, and we've also been recently exploring opportunities in East Africa, where we feel that consumers are just about getting rich enough to want and aspire to having branded goods.
I didn't hear you say India.
Yeah, India is a very scary prospect for a tiny country like Sri Lanka.
No, that's not true. Come on.
But so two things. One, we feel that India has a ton of local players that do
similar stuff like skincare and
do similar stuff really well. But we haven't ruled out India entirely. We're keen to look at India in terms of the states, or take a statewide approach to India. So we have a business in West Bengal. We've started distribution operations in Kerala. So for us, we want to break up India into tinier, more manageable slices.
It's a great strategy. But what do you sell in Bengal and Kerala?
So we sell Kumarika hair oil, which is a value-added hair oil that prevents hair fall, and that's been very successful in Bangladesh. And it's something that also had traction in West Bengal.
In Kerala?
Kerala, same thing. So Kumarika oil
just the one product?
Yes. So we like to kind of understand the market dynamics through one product, because I believe you can't do new product and new market at the same time. It takes a while for the business to adapt.
Right.
So we go in with our hero product, Kumarika oil, which has consistently worked for us. We learn the market, and then we see what other preferences, what other needs can emerge that we can solve for.
So how would you compare Kumarika with, say, Parachute, which is the big, the Indian hair oil, which, by the way, is also used in cooking. I don't know if you know that.
Yes, I do. They actually advertise as a cooking oil.
Yeah, which is crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. So we're slightly different in that Kumarika is a value-added hair oil as opposed to a basic coconut oil, and we have a herbal base as opposed to a coconut oil base.
Right.
And so actually it reduces. We have, I think, 20 different ingredients inside the extract. And it actually reduces hair fall. So it's more focused on the problem of hair fall as opposed to basic nourishment, which Parachute would deliver well, in addition to cooking.
Okay.
Yeah.
But do you find that crazy that Mariko or Parachute is doing both cooking and hair? nourishment?
I think if you look at historically, a lot of practices, our personal care practices, really have evolved with using kitchen ingredients, right? Like even skincare evolved from smashing up a few things in your kitchen and kind of getting the benefits that you wanted. So I don't think it's totally out of sync with our traditional practices. I think that companies are now making it more and more convenient and more efficacious. So that's kind of the journey we're going. For the modern family, you don't really have the time to smash up a bunch of ingredients or, 2 washes in your hair before you get the oil out. So we like to make our products, as convenient and as efficacious as possible.
So are you looking at the European and US market as well, or are you?
It's if it comes, it comes. But it's not a focus market for us right now.
But Sri Lanka is like a 22 million people.
Yes.
Isn't that really tiny? That's the population of Delhi.
Yes.
So
it's really tiny, but I feel that we have a uniqueness that has wider appeal, in that we have a ton of natural resources that you can't find anywhere else in the world. I mentioned heirloom rice.
Right.
We also have a kind of neem that is 2 times more potent than the neem that you find everywhere else. We have a plant called black turmeric that is, again, much more potent. So I think because of Sri Lanka's unique biodiversity and ecosystems, we, the quality of our plants and the potency of our plants are at a far higher degree than sort of your basic commodities. And so this is something we feel we've got really good at, not just identifying, but we've got really good at formulating them. And we've got really good at making sure that we can scale them at an accessible price point. So, the trends of natural goods, people buying into wellness, that isn't slowing down. And so we feel that we actually have a lot to add in this need.
So I want to ask you, you're Sri Lankan, of course, but do you feel South Asian? Do you feel that you can be more than Sri Lankan? Do you have sort of all these multiple identities, or are you thinking like that?
Absolutely. I think, obviously my family comes over from India. So
do you still have family in Kutch?
No, not anymore.
It's been several generations.
It's been several generations. But I think,
Do you know why they came?
During partition.
Oh. Yeah. But why Sri Lanka?
Accidental, boating accident.
Seriously?
I think they're meant to go to the Maldives and then they had a boating accident.
They're meant to go to the Maldives?
Yeah. So happenstance. Yeah.
So they were escaping the partition, thing in India, the trauma in India. But Kutch would have always been part of India, right?
No, and I think Boris in general
so you're Boris
traders.
Muslim?
Yes.
Okay.
So traders, explorers. So I think they were ready for a change. They thought they were going to Maldives, and they ended up here.
Washed up shore in Sri Lanka.
Exactly.
And this set up completely
completely from here, and so
from scratch.
So I do feel, in that sense, South Asian, and I think that the South Asian woman is definitely worth solving for. And so if you look at Vivya, when we started to get into the details, we realized that South Asian women age very differently to Caucasian women. So this aspiration for younger looking skin, it's not wrinkle-free skin. And a lot of the products, Fair and Lovely, Pond's, all of these products that you see on the shelf were really formulated for Caucasian women and then rolled out in South Asia. We want to change that. We want to make sure that the South Asian woman is at the heart of why and how we design our products. So that's really something that drove us to formulate Vivya. And I think pigmentation was a big issue that women faced South Asian women faced as they aged. And so they said, look, we don't care about wrinkles. We care about pigmentation. So help us get the skin that we had when we were younger, when we had no pigment. So I think that's something that we really took on as a challenge. Similarly, if you look at the hair of South Asian women, right? Like it deserves to be treated and embraced very differently to that traditional notion of beauty, which is straight hair, flat hair, hair that's tidy.
Can you do something about my grey hair? Can you make it look
No, embrace it, love it.
Absolutely.
And so this is something that really drives us in that we feel the South Asian woman deserves to be solved for, deserves to be
Is that the heart of your business, the South Asian woman? Or I know you have multiple businesses, But is this the heart of, say, your...
I would say the heart of our business is the South Asian family. And it's about kind of giving the decision maker, which is more often than not the woman, the ability to trust our product so that she can take care of the people that she loves the most. And I think that is consistent about our entire product portfolio. I'm deeply passionate about solving for the South Asian woman, and I think that could really define some of the new categories we go into for the future, because I believe she's making much more active choices than she did 10 years ago. And I see, her aspirations, her financial freedom, I see all of that changing so fast. Even in a 5-year time frame, so
so much more money in her in her bag or purse or wallet or whatever.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the big picture in Sri Lanka. I mean, one is the economy, and things have changed in the last few years. The other is that you're a very diverse people. I mean, you have, of course, the Sinhala Buddhist community is the largest. You're Muslim yourself, the Hindu, the Tamil Hindus. So how do you feel that there are these tensions or these fractures that you have in other parts of South Asia, in India, for example? Do you feel that here?
Yeah, communalism, I think, is the plague of the South Asian democracy, and I think we are no strangers to that. And I think that this is sort of legacy that we have to deal with, and I think we really try hard in our own way to be as inclusive as possible. We try to take to a national stage when we feel that there is injustice. But ultimately,
in what way?
In the sense that if we feel that there are policies that are discriminatory, that deserve to be challenged, we like to challenge them at a policy level.
Has that happened?
We've challenged them and we haven't been successful at...
Give me an example if you want
to. The 13th Amendment is one thing where I think there was a lot of pushback to devolve more power to the provinces, but
the northern and eastern provinces.
Yes, that's right. And so I think unfortunately political will is something that often gets in the way of meaningful change. But ultimately, I believe in controlling what you can control.
Yeah.
And we have 5,000 employees.
That's right.
And
all religions, all ethnicities.
Exactly. And I think you can create. That's kind of, you create a microcosm of the culture that you would like to see in the world. And hopefully they impact their families, and those families impact more families. And so I think ultimately trying to control something that you can't control is often quite frustrating and rarely successful. So we think we have a fairly large sphere of influence amongst these families that we employ, and we like to make sure that we encourage the right behaviors, discourage behaviors we find discriminatory or not inclusive. We try to create as much diversity as possible, and we hope that'll help move things forward.
But it's interesting that you talked about the 13th Amendment, which affects a lot of people. So the corporate community in Sri Lanka, do people talk about these political issues?
Not enough. I think historically there has been a separation between the private sector and issues of national importance, whether it be ethnic tensions, whether it be issues of anti-corruption. And I think typically the private sector has stayed out of these issues. I think the economic crisis was a tipping point in that for the first time you saw private sector chambers actually publicly standing for good governance, publicly standing for the public interest, and actually crossing that line between not saying anything and actively kind of promoting good public policy. And I think hopefully that shift is something that we can continue to build on, and continue to kind of realize that if the public sector doesn't stand up for issues of national importance, there will be very little incentive to actually work on them.
So you believe that the 13th Amendment should be implemented, and especially in the northern and eastern provinces, powers must be devolved, whether it's land or police or
so I firmly believe that that communities should feel part of the decision-making process.
Right.
And whether it's the 13th Amendment, or whether it's strengthening our provincial councils, or whether it's
having elections.
Yeah. So I think ultimately participatory democracy in its full sense, whether it be through a constitutional amendment or whether it be through kind of engagement or consultation, I think that is a no-brainer for me.
And do younger people like you, both in the corporate community as well as outside, are they thinking like that much more?
Again, I think the run up to the economic crisis, where there was a lot of opposition to the government at the time, I think that really that really had people from different political backgrounds, like different ages, and particularly spearheaded by sort of the younger vote base,
right,
really came out and reclaimed.
Were you there?
Yes.
You were there on Golf Face Green?
Yes.
And you were marching with the flag and you were protesting?
I was there. I believed that we needed a change at that time. And I think that a lot of people felt that they needed to actually assert their democratic right.
Did you go inside the presidential?
No, I did not. No, I did not. But I think that's something that we saw again. The public really asserted their democratic right to vote, and I hope that we use really that as again an inflection point to change how we interact, how government interacts with the people that elected them, as opposed to kind of feeling entitled about the.
What about the Easter attacks? Which targeted the Christian community. And then there was a lot of blowback on Sri Lanka's Muslim community. Did that sort of exacerbate tensions?
It did, yeah. I think the business also encountered significant challenges at
Your
the
business?
time. Yes, because we're a Muslim company. But I think, I think that was something that was incredibly challenging, but our staff really came out and in support of the business, whether they be Sinhala, Tamil or Muslim. And I think for me, that was, even through the worst of times, I think that was really encouraging, because it showed us that this communalism is not necessarily something that cannot be fixed.
Right.
It only exists because of the fear of the other, right? And so I think, again, if you have spheres of influence where you can assert the values that you believe are necessary for an inclusive society, and you do it well, often you can kind of repair deeply communal tensions that that you see.
And one way would be, like you're doing, is to talk about these issues and not to hide behind, or not to be fearful about the fact that you're Hindu or Muslim or Sinhala or Christian or something, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And to assert your own identity.
Absolutely. And it's about, not being afraid to know the other. And I think often we live in deeply segregated societies where you're fearful of the other as opposed to empathetic towards the other, and that's something that I think we need to do more of.
So these crises that you've been through personally as a young person who's inherited your dad's company, how did that change you as a business person?
Ultimately, I think you're here because you want to build something bigger for yourself. It's not just a job, right? And my job is to ensure that this business is flourishing to the point where I can pass it to the fifth generation. So really, I am the custodian or the steward of the business. And I think with family businesses, I think that's why you have family businesses that are able to sustain for so long, if they manage governance and interpersonal relationships well, is because they have a much longer horizon for their businesses, and hopefully take decisions that are not just driving short-term results, but long-term interest. And with that comes not just a focus on profitability, but it also comes from the business making an impact on its communities, and a business that is run sustainably, because ultimately there's a much longer term sort of horizon in which you're taking decisions.
And do you feel that in the Sri Lankan business community that you do you find that there is empathy amongst each other about, especially since you're emerging from the pandemic, that you guys work more closely together as a community, especially as you deal with the political class?
Yeah. I I think the private sector in Sri Lanka, particularly certain industries, do come together quite well. I mean, if you look at the apparel industry, it comes together really well. I think we have a good sort of set of chamber committees that come together really well and work effectively to solve for industry issues. So I think there's a lot of consensus building that happens in private sector in Sri Lanka, which is again a function of the fact that we're so small, right?
Yeah. So you ready to fly, Sabrina?
Ready to fly.
Come to India.
Born ready.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Listen, thank you so much for your time. It's been
Thanks so
fantastic
much for
chatting
having
with
me.
you. And I went to some of the stores in Colombo, and your products are all over the place.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, and lots of and very, very brightly displayed. So that
Yes,
is very nice.
yes, yeah.
Thanks again.
Thanks.